showing you how to make DIY seed tags. The method we are showing you is a great way to upcycle your paper and turn it into recycled, repurposed paper of your own. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take old paper and mix it with plant seeds to create your very own paper seed gift tags that you can use when giving gifts, like say for Mother's Day or Father's Day coming up. And the nice thing about these is because there's plant seeds in them, you can actually plant them in the ground and they will grow to become flowers. We had a limited number of kits available for pickup at the drive-up window that have some of the supplies you need. Those include a package of Zinnia California Giant seeds, 2 3D printed cookie cutters that we made in our makery, and a laser engraved bamboo plant label that we made in our makery, which you can use to stick in the ground once you've planted the paper seeds so you know what's there. We also included some parchment paper. Not included in your craft kit that you'll need for this craft include a blender, a mixing bowl, a mesh strainer, some paper towels, some warm water, and some paper. I do want to talk a moment about the paper used for this craft. Because some paper has been bleached and some paper uses petroleum ink, you cannot just plant or use any paper in a garden or with your compost. There's actually a local organization called Scarce. It's located in Addison that is a great resource for recycling information and composting information. We put a link to their website in the description of this video in case you wanted to ask them more questions. Generally speaking, local newspapers are safe to use when creating paper, seed paper, or composting. These papers, like the Daily Herald and the Chicago Sun-Times, are not bleached and they used plant-based ink. One newspaper that we know of is not safe to use with composting or with gardening, and that's the Chicago Tribune. Even though the paper is not bleached, the ink is petroleum-based, so it's not safe in a garden or for composting. This is also an opportunity for you to use shredded paper and upcycle it. For those of you that are not aware, shredded paper cannot be recycled in a standard recycling bin. You have to recycle shredded paper at special facilities or special recycling events. And the Scarce website has a list of all of the upcoming recycling events that take shredded paper for you to visit and drop off at. Also, you want to be aware that not all paper that you shred is safe. Again, if it's white paper, it might be bleached, and some of the ink could be petroleum-based. So you want to make sure that you're not using a lot of it, or that you're not using it at all, depending on where it came from. Now that we've covered some of the supplies, we're ready to get started. The first step is the step that's going to take you the longest. You either want to collect your shredded paper or you want to take your recycled paper and tear it into pieces. And you want to soak it with hot water for an hour. I'm just using hot water from the tap, but you can either microwave or boil water too. And you just want to make sure that all of your paper is fully submerged in the water. And we're going to let this soak for a full hour. After you let your paper soak for an hour, the next thing we're going to do is blend it and create kind of like an oatmeal paste. So you're going to pop open your blender, dump your paper inside with all the water. Make sure you put that lid back on so you don't make a mess. Put it in your blender and then press on. You should be going for a oatmeal consistency, so you shouldn't need to blend it for too long, depending on how much you have. So that looks pretty good for mine. It's that nice oatmeal smoothie type of consistency. So I'm gonna take it out of the blender. I'm gonna unplug and set this aside. And And you're gonna wanna take your strainer now. And so what I'm gonna do is set my strainer in my bowl, open my blender up, and I'm going to dump this into the strainer. And I'm gonna let some of that water drip through and sink into the bowl. And you wanna make sure you rinse out your blender before it dries. It's going to be a lot harder to clean when the mixture inside that's left dries. Once you let some of the excess water drip, you're gonna take some paper towels and you're going to kind of smush your oatmeal paper paste and get some more water out. And you are gonna need a couple paper towels for this. And once you've patted out a lot of the moisture, you can go ahead and mix and dump this in a fresh bowl if you want. And then the water that's left, you can go ahead and toss that into your garden or plants and use that to water some plants. After you've strained the mixture and gotten some of the extra moisture out, you're ready to mix in your seeds. So I'm gonna open my package, and depending on how much you wanna make, you can use all of your seeds in one tag or split them across a few tags. So I'm gonna use all of mine for the amount that I'm doing here. And I'm gonna kind of fold it in and mix it in and make sure that it's kind of evenly spread into this mixture. So I've already mixed in my seeds. You'll notice that my paste is kind of gray. If you want, you can add color by using food coloring, or you can mix in flower petals for some decorations and color. You want to make sure whatever you mix in is food safe and safe for the environment. You do not want to mix in paints. Not every paint is safe to go in the ground. So we're going to go ahead and take this paste, and we are going to push it into our cookie cutters on top of our parchment paper. And you want to make sure that you're kind of getting it all inside your cookie cutter and that you're not missing any openings, any gaps. And I made my seed tags pretty thick, but you can make them thinner or thicker, whichever you prefer. But what you want to do is after you get the paste filled in and it fills all of the edges, you're going to pat it down and continue to get out some of that moisture. And if you notice you're patting it down and it's getting really thin, you can add more paste and make it thick. So mine looks pretty good. I've patted a lot of the moisture out and I've patted it down and compressed it. So I'm going to gently remove my cookie cutter. And you want to be careful that you're not tearing it or pulling it away. And you're going to let that dry and sit. So I'm going to do that for my other one. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to remove my cookie cutter. And I'm going to continue doing that until I run out of paste. Now you're going to let these sit for a couple hours until they're fully dry. Once it dries, you're ready to use it or plant it. And so what I did to turn it into a gift tag is I took a sharp number 2 pencil, or you can use like a knitting needle if you have one around the house. And I poked a hole gently through the paper. You want to be very gentle because it is easy to crumble and break these. And once I poked a hole, I attached a ribbon so I can attach this to a gift. And then you can write on these. So I just took a pen and I wrote to Grandma. So I can use this as a gift to Grandma, and when Grandma's done with it, she can plant it in the ground and it can become flowers. Thank you for joining me on today's craft. Hopefully you have a couple paper seed tags to use for gifts and plant into the ground. If you liked this craft and want to see what we have coming up for future crafts, you can go to unlived.org/kits. And if you keep watching this video, you can see how we made the laser engraved plant labels. To make the laser engraved plant labels in your craft kit, there are two things that we needed. The first was the physical plant label. We laser engraved blank plant labels that we bought online, and the ones in your kit are made out of unfinished bamboo wood. For the laser cutter, you can use any type of wood, but it cannot be stained, sealed, or painted. The second thing you need is a design file. Now for this project, all we did was laser engrave some text, so you can use Microsoft Word to create your design. I like to be able to visualize how big the item is to make sure that the font size is not too big or too small. So what I like to do is go to the Insert tab, choose a text box, and I'm just going to choose the simple text box. And it's going to create an outlined rectangle with text inside of it. And what I'm going to do is click on that text box, and in the upper right, it should tell you what the size of that text box is. I'm going to change this to 1 inch tall and 2 inches wide, which is the approximate size for the plant label. And so this way I can see here that my outline is about the size of the label I'm engraving. I'm then going to delete all of the text in the inside, and we are going to type in the name of the flower we supplied in your craft kit. The official name is Zinnia California Giant, but we shortened it to California Zinnia. And then we also put in the words full sun, so that way you remember where it needs to be planted when it comes time. You'll notice that my font is not too decorative and I have a lot of space left in my text box. So what I'm going to do is select the font, go back to home, center it, and I'm going to choose a decorative font. In our case, we used Lucida Calligraphy. And I still have some space for the words California Zinnia, so I'm going to select the text and I'm going to change the font size to 13. And this way it fills in the plant label a little bit bigger. But since full sun isn't as necessary of a label, I'm going to keep that at 11-point font. And so this is all you need for your project. So you can go ahead and hit File, Save as a Word document, save it to a flash drive, or send it to your email. Book a laser cutter appointment and get your own plant label engraved if you wanted to. And so next we're going to show you how the laser cutter works. So this is the Makery's laser cutter. Once you have your wood and your design, you would book an appointment to come use it, and staff will help you operate the machine. Your design needs to be saved as a computer file, which would be opened using this computer that has Adobe and Microsoft software programs available. The machine works best with flat items, so in this case we're just going to set our flat piece of wood on the platform, and we're going to change the camera angle so you can see inside a little bit better. Now that we have our piece of wood in the machine and our design file is loaded on the computer, we can start setting where the design should start. With this machine, the laser needs to be a certain distance from the surface of your material, so there is a setting that allows us to raise and lower the sped to make sure the laser beam is focused. There's also a setting that allows us to move the laser head where we want it to start. Now, in our case, we're just going to eyeball it. And so I'm going to place the laser beam in the upper left corner, and that is marked by this red dot that we see on the wood. And there's a button that I'm going to press that draws out the parameters of our design. As long as it doesn't leave the surface of the wood, that means it's going to fit on the piece of material. So I can go ahead and close the lid, turn on our exhaust and our air compressor, and start the engraving process. So there you have it, the engraving finished. If we open up the lid and take the piece of wood out, you can see that it's freshly engraved. This is using a 60 power, 60 speed on the laser cutter. And now it is ready to stick in the ground with our seed tags.